Okay, so welcome everyone to the Financial Fox Finance Investment and Crypto with a Twist. Today is the Defi Clinic special, and joining me is the Dev Oski and Dev Banayad from Umbria Network, and they are here with me to dive deep into DeFi or decentralized finance and answer all your questions. So thank you so much for coming on the show and doing these things, which I think is really valuable for everybody interested in getting into crypto, but also for people that are already in the space.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's exciting to be here. Definitely excited to talk about everything crypto and DeFi and what's new in the space.
Yeah, looking forward to answering some questions.
Fantastic. So one of the things is obviously there are investors, they are mainly doing equity stuff and they are not so familiar with crypto, or perhaps they might invest in Bitcoin or Ethereum. But when the concept of DeFi comes out, they say, oh, well, what's that? And they think it's a bit complicated. So what I would like you maybe as the first question is for you to explain what is DeFi, and then we can go a little bit more into details.
Sure. So DeFi basically stands for decentralized finance. And these days you have all of the instruments that you would see in a typical financial system, but now all of this stuff is in a decentralized way. And what I mean by decentralized is there's no governing authority on any of these financial instruments or on any of these technologies. And so unlike a centralized system like a bank or like a stock market, there is no one person who is able to afflict their power onto the system by stopping someone from using it, or changing some of the figures underneath or anything like that. And so it's a way for people who might not particularly trust the banking system or might not have access to regular financial systems to get into finance. And that can be in any area of finance. So it can be in things like lending and earning interest on your cryptocurrency. It can be transacting one currency for another. Any financial instrument that you would expect in a centralized system is now pretty much available in decentralized finance.
Okay, so question is, how do I get involved in DeFi? So if I'm not so familiar with decentralized exchange and things, what investors should do to actually get into DeFi and benefit from exactly what you said, lending, earning yields and everything else?
Yeah, so it depends on how advanced you are as a cryptocurrency user. If you're brand new to the space and you've never dipped your toes into crypto and you're looking to get into it, the first thing you'd want to do is go to one of the major cryptocurrency exchanges. So somebody like Coinbase, KuCoin, Binance, depending on your jurisdiction, one of those is probably your best bet. And from there, you're able to purchase cryptocurrency with regular currency, whether it be pound or US dollar or whatever currency you like to use. And then from there, you'll have your cryptocurrency asset, and you can move into the decentralized space. You can withdraw that cryptocurrency onto a wallet that you have, like a Metamask is a good example of a wallet. And then from there, you can connect that wallet into all of these decentralized applications that are available to you on the internet.
Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper. You mentioned MetaMask, and people say, "Oh, what's MetaMask?" So I think going on Coinbase, exchange fiat for Ethereum, which is the main one to get into DeFi, that's fine. I think most of the people are going to be able to do that. It's not so complicated. So once you have your Ethereum in your Coinbase wallet, what do you do?
Okay, so the next step that you want to do is download MetaMask. And now you can either do that as a mobile application on your iPhone or Android device, or it's also an extension on Google Chrome. I think it's on Firefox as well, Edge, Brave browser, any of the browsers that you would normally use the internet on. So you download the extension or download the app. And once you've done that, it's going to ask you to generate what's known as a seed phrase, which is basically a string of characters that is going to be unique to you. And that is kind of like your key to prove your ownership of the assets you put on that wallet. So once you have that, make sure you don't ever give that phrase to anyone, because that's your private phrase that will have all of your assets tied to it for transacting on the blockchain. Once you have that, you're now able to go back to Coinbase or go back to Binance, where you've initially paid for those, Ethereum or Bitcoin, or whatever it might be. You can then as long as it's an Ethereum token or Ethereum, you can transact those tokens from the Coinbase onto your MetaMask wallet. But MetaMask is only a wallet that's going to be usable for what's known as ERC20 tokens, so tokens that are compatible with the Ethereum blockchain. If you want to buy Bitcoin or you want to buy a cryptocurrency that isn't on Ethereum, you'll have to find the appropriate wallet that will handle that asset, and then you can follow the same steps.
Okay, I think that was a really good description. One thing that is very important for us to stress on is you mentioned the seed phrase and all this kind of data that you need to keep secure in order to access your wallet again, because people are used maybe on Coinbase, they forget something. There is always a way to get back your account, where on MetaMask there won't be an option. So what should they be? What they should be doing to make sure they are always going to be able to access their digital assets and their wallet?
Yeah, so like you said, if you're using Coinbase and you have your cryptocurrency on there and you forget your password or something, you can contact support and you can get them to reset your password. And there's always a way and someone you can talk to get back into accessing your funds. But with MetaMask, because it's decentralized and there's no governing authority that have, like a master key to get in for you, you're really on your own if you do lose your keys. And if you've lost your keys and lost your password, there is, no way to get your assets back on the blockchain. And we've actually seen in Bitcoin, for example, I think it's something like 20 or 30% of funds that have ever been mined on Bitcoin are now lost forever. And so you really have to make sure to back up your private keys and back up your seed phrase when you make a wallet. And so when you make a wallet, it's going to give you a seed phrase. That seed phrase can then generate multiple private keys, and then you can use those private keys to store funds in and all that kind of thing. But you need to get that seed phrase and write it down somewhere, or put it, somewhere really secure, and make sure you have a backup of that. And then if you ever do, have your phone smashed or something like that, or you forget the password or whatever it might be, you have a backup of it somewhere that's safe so you can retrieve your funds. Because if you don't have that seed phrase, or you don't have the private keys for those particular accounts that you made on your MetaMask wallet, it's game over. You can't actually access those funds ever again.
Yeah. And don't share the key, obviously the phrase, with anybody, because if they have your seed phrase, then they can just log in, open the wallet, set up a new password, and just see all your assets basically and do anything they want.
Exactly, and that is a vector for scammers online at the moment. What they'll do is they'll try to get you to give them your seed phrase. They'll try to scam you into getting you to send them your seed phrase. And under no situation, in any situation at all, there's no reason ever to give your seed phrase to any application or to any person when using any decentralized finance. That seed phrase is yours and for you alone. And if anyone gets access to that seed phrase, they can drain your wallet, in seconds. And so that's something that you need to keep to yourself at all times.
Okay, let's get into something a bit more exciting, because everybody, is trying to make money. Obviously, we are seeing inflation. People are trying to find a way to invest. Many people are actually going to the stock market that is reaching all-time high every day, which is mad. But obviously, they are hearing that in crypto, they can make more money because there is this yield that is much better than having money in the bank account. So let's maybe start to talk about how to get into farming, staking, and where perhaps they should go. So if we have got all our Ethereum in our wallet, then in our MetaMask, then what we do to make money?
Okay, so first of all, you need to figure out what your risk tolerance is, because in the crypto space, you can get really spicy and potentially earn large sums of money and lose large sums of money, or you can play it safe and invest in something like a stable coin and earn a low fee. So let's say that you have Ethereum and you want to invest in a low risk situation. What you can do is you can convert that Ethereum on Coinbase or wherever you want to trade into a stable coin, which is a coin that will always be the same price as a pegged asset. So for example, there is USDC, which is a stable coin that's pegged to the US dollar. So at any situation, one USDC is going to equal one USD. So once you've moved your Ethereum into USDC, you now have a big chunk of USDC. There's a few different options for farming, but one of the easiest ways to farm is going to somewhere like Uni Swap, which is a decentralized exchange where people can swap one token for another token. And you can add some of your Ethereum and some of your USDC as a pair into the system. And then when people trade between USDC and Ethereum, they'll be charged a small fee, and that small fee will go to you as the provider of the liquidity into the system. So that's one way that you can provide liquidity. Another way that you can provide liquidity is you can provide just one asset by itself instead of adding a pair of assets. And that's actually better in a lot of ways because there's a thing called impermanent loss. I won't explain too much about how it works, but basically with impermanent loss, if one of those assets shoots up really high in price, you actually lose some of that upside. So that is a problem with farming in something like Uniswap. But if you farm in a farm such as the Umbria Bridge, which you only need to add one asset to that, basically you won't suffer from impermanent loss. You'll just put this asset into the bridge by going to the website, typing in umbriabridge.network and following the prompts, putting your assets in, and then every time any user bridges some of that type of asset from one blockchain to another using the Umbria Bridge, you will get a fee, and that fee will then be allocated to your account. And basically, from the assets that you've added into the Umbria Bridge, you're earning like an APY, an interest on those assets.
Okay, it might be useful to maybe share the screen, and so then people can see the page of the Umbria Bridge, and they can see where they can perhaps put their asset. Shall I do, or you want to do it?
I'm on mobile at the moment, so if you could do it from your end, that would be better.
Okay, fine. So let me just go on Umbria, because I think it's always better to show people the visually. I think
Definitely. It's quite complicated, especially the first time around. There's a lot of moving parts, so it's always better to have someone show you the first time. Because with crypto, again, if you make a mistake, that can be very costly because there's no one that can kind of undo that mistake. If you send something to the wrong place or accidentally fall victim to a scam or something like that, it's very difficult to get your funds back.
Okay, I think I might need one of you two to do it because I'm having some trouble with my screen.
Sure, I can do it.
Awesome, thank you. You should be able to, I think. Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
And Oscar, did you want to explain how the website works?
Yeah, so just following on from what Dev Barnyard was saying, one of the most exciting parts of DeFi is lending your assets to different applications and then being rewarded by doing so by earning some of the fees that those applications generate whenever your assets are used. And so with the Umbria Bridge, and I'm just still bringing that up now, your assets are used. When you put your assets into the bridge, they are used to help facilitate people bridging between different cryptocurrency networks. So if someone wants to move their assets from the Ethereum network to the Polygon network, and you're providing liquidity on Polygon, that liquidity gets borrowed to facilitate that transaction. And when that transaction takes place, a small fee is earned by the application, and you get the lion's share of that fee. And so here we go. Let me know if that's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. That's great.
Okay, so there are a bunch of different assets that you can lend to the Umbria platform to facilitate cross-chain bridging. And basically, cross-chain bridging just means moving.
Oscar, can I stop you here? So let's say that people have got their assets on the MetaMask. Let's go back to the step where they go on the website, because otherwise we miss that, and they might, where do I connect with MetaMask? I think I know it sounds a bit step by step, but I think lots of people that will benefit from it.
Sure. Well, I'm not sure if you can see the top of my screen, the little fox icon here, but that is my MetaMask wallet, if you can see that.
Okay.
Can you see that on your screen?
Yeah, we can.
Cool. And when you come to this website, it automatically sort of asks you whether you want to sign into your MetaMask wallet, and you would just type in your password and click OK if you want to sign in. And once you've done that, your wallet is connected to this application. But the application doesn't yet have access to your funds. You have to approve that access when you interact with the application. So now that I'm here and I have signed in just behind the scenes before I shared my screen, so no one saw me type in my password or anything like that, these are the assets that are available to be bridged on the Umbria bridge, and people are bridging between Ethereum and Polygon with these assets to get to various DeFi applications, because there might be some kind of DeFi application on Polygon that's not available on Ethereum, and so people need to move their assets between those two networks to take advantage of the application. So if you're holding any of these assets like Ethereum or Aave Gotchi token or Umbria or whatever it might be, you can come into this page, and this is bridge.umbria.network/pool, provide liquidity for those assets and immediately start earning interest on those assets. So let's say you wanted to provide Ethereum liquidity, and I've got a little bit of Ethereum liquidity in here so we can see exactly how that works. You would click add liquidity. You would type in the amount of liquidity you wanted to add. You click add liquidity to confirm the transaction. Metamask would pop up and you would confirm that. And now you're earning more Ethereum every day through the application, and you'll be able to see the history of your earnings by clicking this button. And as you can see, once it's loaded, I've been earning Ethereum for a long time. This scrolls down, and this is every 5 minutes I've been earning Ethereum. But we've just changed the application so that it pays out once per day, not every 5 minutes. And so once a day, if you're staking Ethereum or any asset in the application, you'll see a little record of how much you've earned for that period. And the APY is the amount of interest that you earn when you stake your assets in the system is contingent on how much people are using the application. And so for Ethereum, for example, we have had up to 100% APY for staking your assets on Ethereum. So
okay, and then anytime that you want to unstake because you maybe want to get your Ethereum back and do something else, you just click unstake, and it's very easy. Immediately you can just take your Ethereum back with the rewards that you earn.
Exactly. Yeah, you would just click this unstake button here. You would sign that transaction on your MetaMask to confirm that you are the owner of those funds. And then the funds will be immediately sent back to you. But it's a good idea to hold your funds for at least 1 day in the system to ensure that you get the payout for holding, once per day. But you can see that Umbria has a much higher APY than all of the other assets in the pool. And that's because Umbria stakers, people who are providing liquidity of Umbria in our bridge pool, get a slice of the fees of all the other assets on that network in that pool as well. And so those all stack up, and instead of having like 15% on Ethereum, which is still really high compared to a lot of other platforms out there, Umbria stakers get 50% APY currently, which is a lot better than keeping your money in a bank or something like that.
So, for example, people, when they say, okay, maybe I'm going to stake on Blockify or I'm going to stake on Celsius, but they're not going to get this kind of APY. They are very high compared to these other players.
Yeah, I think getting 10% on Ethereum is about the maximum you would get on traditional DeFi platforms. And often that's coupled with impermanent loss, which, like Barney said, takes away a lot of your upside if the price of the asset goes up. And so, 14%, and it has been a lot higher than that for Ethereum, is super, super competitive. And as far as I know, it's the best APY that you can get in DeFi for Ethereum. Yeah, so same goes for Polygon. As you see down here, it's 11%. So that's really, really high. So it's very competitive, definitely worth checking out.
So if I say, right, I'm going to go on Umbria Bridge, I'm going to make 14% on Ethereum, is this 14% always the same, or is going to change, and how people should expect this fluctuation to be?
Yeah, it definitely fluctuates because it really depends on how many people are using the bridge. If someone uses the bridge to migrate assets from one chain to the other, they have to pay a 0.5% fee, and that gets split up between the liquidity providers of Umbria and the liquidity providers of that particular asset which got bridged. So if nobody's bridging, no one's earning any APY, but if a lot of people are bridging, then the APYs get really, really high. And we're just about to expand this platform to a new chain, a new cryptocurrency network called the Binance Smart Chain, which is incredibly popular in DeFi. And so we expect a lot more volume on the bridge than we have now, and that should increase the APYs even further.
One thing I would just say as well is that you'll often see DeFi platforms that are offering, a crazy high APY on certain assets, and it's very you have to be very careful when going for some of these DeFi platforms that have crazy high APY, because there are some sneaky tricks that they can pull. So it looks like you're going to earn a lot of money on your crypto, where actually you're not going to earn any money, and you can even lose money. So, for example, one trick that people will do is they'll make it so that you'll get 800% APY or 1000% APY if you stake their token and then another token like USDC. And what they'll do is then over the course of 3 months or a few weeks or whatever it might be, they will dump the price of their token, and so you'll earn 800% of their token that isn't worth anything. But then actually you won't earn any money because the token that they're giving to you as a fee reward becomes worthless. And so you've just got to be vigilant and careful out there when you're looking at some of these riskier DeFi platforms, and make sure to do your research. And if you see something that looks way too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, exactly. So like just going even further on that point there, if you stake $1,000 of USDC and $1,000 of token X that might be worth $1 at the time, and then they the creators of that token keep selling that token, pushing the price down to where it gets to zero, you've put $2,000 in and you've got $1,000 worth of value at the end of the day, and you might have 800% more of the token that project has created. But now that they've pushed the price of that token to nothing from something, you still lost money.
Okay, wow. So that's why people should be really careful. So one thing that I want to also ask to touch is the fact that obviously people and users are getting an APY, but also Umbria as a platform is going to get a small percentage, which is important because it helps the project to have a revenue actually. And that's, I think, is quite key for some investor, for example, in online blockchain, which is the administrator and the advisor of Umbria, because I've got quite a few investors asking me, okay, so Umbria is making money. How is making money?
Well,
yeah, so
the way it works is the Umbria token holders and the liquidity providers get the benefit. And so the people who hold the Umbria token are getting a slice of the fees that are generated from this, and OBC hold a portion of the Umbria token. There isn't any amount of the fee generation that goes to a particular company or a particular person. It's only geared to go to the holders of the Umbria token, of which online blockchain holds an amount. And so that's how online blockchain make money from it. It doesn't go directly to online blockchain by virtue of them being online blockchain, if that makes sense.
Exactly. And that's kind of a nice way of doing it in a decentralized way, because it means that if somebody buys the tokens from OBC, OBC will no longer be a part of the company. And so it's a more democratic and kind of decentralized way of doing it, and something that you see quite a lot in the cryptocurrency space.
And the good thing about that is that it puts positive pressure on the price of the Umbria token. So if OBC at some point decide to sell a bunch of the Umbria token, they can do that and forfeit their rights to earn the fees from this application, but those tokens will be worth an amount of money. So it's just a decision that OBC would have to make at that time. Maybe it would be worth selling a chunk, forfeiting the fees generated by the bridge, but also getting a chunk of capital for selling the token.
So, and that would be obviously in their interest to sell when there is liquidity, when there is demand, so the price is not going to be hammered.
In my opinion, there would never be an incentive to sell. That's just my opinion, though, because we're always going to be adding new chains and new assets to this system. And so the earning potential of holding Umbria, in my opinion, is always going to increase as we keep adding those assets, keep adding those chains, and captivating new audiences and increasing the volume on the application. So especially in this early stage where we're still just at the very beginning of adding assets and adding chains, we're about to add another one, but we've only got one chain so far. I think the incentive to sell the Umbria, as far as I'm concerned, is very low, because there's such a bright future ahead with all these other chains that we can implement, all these other assets we can implement.
Yeah, and Umbria, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a token that holds its value because of speculation. It holds its value because as an Umbria staker, you earn money from having that token. And so the value of the Umbria token, the way I see it anyway, the value of the Umbria token is dependent on the APY that our bridge offers, which is dependent on the volume of our bridge. And so as the bridge increases in volume and more people use it, I see the Umbria price increasing because the value underlying of each token will increase because you'll earn more from the bridge by staking that token.
Okay, so that's great. And I think we can come back to the bridge later. But first of all, let's maybe explain something about network congestion, high fees, scalability, which was one of the reasons why Umbria partnered with Polygon, for example, because when maybe the newcomers, they hear about DeFi, they start to understand how it works, then one of the things they're going to hear is, oh, but there are sometimes really high fee, the network is congested, and you know, this is kind of like challenges. So it's not, if you have a small amount of money, you can't really participate in DeFi.
Yeah,
maybe you go ahead, Bonnie, you answer this one.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I would say that as a newcomer, I would avoid using the Ethereum blockchain in the beginning as much as possible, because these days in 2021, there are better, cheaper, and faster options when getting your feet wet into DeFi. If you're looking to do DeFi on Ethereum, you can easily pay hundreds of dollars per transaction for providing liquidity to an exchange or swapping your assets on Uni Swap or something like that. But if you're using something like Polygon, you can do the same thing for almost free. And so there are a few ways that you can on-ramp onto Polygon and bypass Ethereum completely and never have to worry about those big fees. And so one example of that would be to buy something like Polygon token on Binance. But also, if you do have your assets on Ethereum, and sometimes that's unavoidable, you can transfer your assets from Ethereum onto Polygon using the Umbria bridge. And then once you're on Polygon, you can do all of the things you would want to do with decentralized finance without having to pay hundreds of dollars every time you want to make a transaction.
Okay, and when we are saying about Polygon, Metamask also has a Polygon, a Matic mainnet, Matic, which is Polygon, obviously, mainnet. So people can just use Metamask to exchange between one chain to the other.
Exactly. So from Metamask, you can configure the settings so that your Metamask connects to any of the Ethereum style blockchains. So Ethereum is one of them, and then there's Polygon. Binance Smart Chain would probably be the third biggest. And then you have a few other ones like Avalanche, Phantom, and a whole bunch of other ones that MetaMask is compatible with. But I would personally say as a newcomer, Polygon would be a good place to start because it's very cheap, it's very quick, and there's a lot of mainstream adoption as well.
Okay. Let's maybe talk about some of the lending platform. So let's say quite popular is Aave, right? And some people, they just go on Aave and they lend money to somebody else. So you've got a bunch of USDC, and then you say, okay, my just wanna lend on Aave. So do we maybe want to, talk a little bit about Aave and how that is, is a good marketplace, a good app for DeFi, to get into DeFi?
Yeah, so if you have large amounts of assets that you would like to lend to other people and earn money, you can go to a lending platform like Compound or Aave, put your assets into the system, and then you will earn APY for that. You can also go in there and get something called a collateralized loan from these platforms. Okay. That's where essentially you add your assets into the system, and then they get locked up, and then they give you more assets back to you that then you can use across the blockchain space. And this is a way that people sometimes leverage themselves up so that they can earn more money when a crypto asset goes up, or they'll lose more money if a crypto asset goes down. And so you do have to be careful if you're a newbie and you're starting to look at lending and things like that, because it can be quite easy to get liquidated and that kind of thing. Yeah. And also on the Ethereum blockchain, it is very expensive to do all of that lending stuff. So anyone who's looking at getting into lending as a beginner, just make sure to be careful not to get liquidated.
Yeah, and another thing that's exciting to mention as well is that all of these platforms, the big guys like Aave and Sushi, people like that, they are migrating not migrating, but they're doing versions of their software on Polygon, on these more efficient, more effective chains. And so the barrier to entry for getting into these platforms is really lowering now that they've become available on these more efficient chains, on these cheaper and faster chains. And so if you're looking into these platforms and you're not really sure where to start, I would definitely make sure that the platform that you're interested in is available on one of these cheaper chains like Polygon. I think Polygon is probably the one to look out for. If it's available on Polygon, then you can use the Umbria bridge to actually get your assets to Polygon for very cheap, and then you're ready to go. and start playing around with these platforms. But
so let's look at the bridge. Let's maybe try to look at the bridge. So then when, let's say there's somebody, okay, I might want to go on Sushi, I might want to go on Aave, that has got a Polygon marketplace as well. So how do we move our Ethereum that we have in our MetaMask wallet using the Umbria bridge?
Yeah, sure. I'll
and also why, Oscar and Bunny, why we should use the Umbria bridge and not another bridge?
Okay. Okay. So let's start from the beginning. If you have your assets in your MetaMask wallet and you're new, you probably have your assets on the Ethereum network, because Ethereum is the mothership. It's the main hub of one of the main hubs of crypto. So you probably have your assets on Ethereum. But if you want to interact with a protocol that isn't on Ethereum, but it's on Polygon, for example, you're going to need to move your assets from Ethereum to Polygon in a system called bridging. And so there are a couple of different styles of bridging. Umbria has one style. There's the official Polygon bridge, which is another style. But the problem with, in my opinion, all the other bridges is that they use a different kind of bridging protocol to Umbria, and they're way more expensive. So if you want to use the Polygon bridge to get from Ethereum to Polygon, the official Polygon bridge, it can cost you $200, $300, and it can take 4 hours. And that just kind of introduces a barrier to entry for a lot of people. So what Umbria have done is we've come up with a new style of bridging, which is a factor of 10 cheaper and a factor of 10 faster, using a different kind of bridging protocol. So let's say you have your assets on Ethereum and you want to get them to Polygon. You would come to bridge.umbria.network/bridge, and then you'd be met with this interface. And so the first section of this application says, where are you sending from? And I'm sending from Ethereum. And let's say I want to go to Polygon, but very soon you'll be able to also go to Binance Smart Chain. So then I would select Polygon, and then I would select which asset I want to bridge. So let's say I want to bridge Ethereum, just to keep it easy. And I would type in how much Ethereum I want to bridge. And then I would simply click send. And I would be met with this receipt here to say what exactly is going to happen, how much Ethereum I'm going to get after the send. And then I can choose exactly how fast the funds reach the Umbria bridge to speed up or otherwise not have such a fast transaction. And then I would click send, sign a transaction on my MetaMask, wait a few minutes, and it would appear on the other network. Once it's there, I can start interacting with the protocol, the DeFi lending platform that I want to on Polygon.
Which is exactly what I did with the Aavegotchi to interact with the Aavegotchiverse. That was, I had to go on Coinbase, get a bit more, I think I did Matic actually. I transferred some Matic to the Ethereum in MetaMask, to the Ethereum network in MetaMask, and then I used the bridge to send the Matic to the Matic bridge because I needed them in order to swap.
Right, of course.
They are going to be obviously the gas fee on the Polygon on the Matic network. So it's a very handy way to kind of, when you have to take part into this application, the bridge becomes really useful.
Yeah, one of the major bottlenecks for a lot of these projects who want to onboard people onto Polygon is that until now, there hasn't been an effective way to move people's funds without really cutting into their funds with the fees, and also taking a long time for users to get to Polygon. And so I think that has been sort of it's been one of the reasons why projects that have launched on Polygon have really struggled to onboard people. But now that we have the Umbria bridge, it's really reducing the cost of entry and also reducing the time of entry. We've seen a lot of uptick of projects on Polygon who've adopted our bridge.
Okay. What is, so I'm just looking your screen. Maybe that's something that people would like to know. We see 141 giveaway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is
okay,
the
explain
current...
that. So then,
Sure. So Ethereum is a network that processes transactions, right? And so it has a level of congestion at any particular moment. It could be not particularly congested and not that many people are trying to send transactions, or it can be really congested when everyone tries to send a transaction at the same time. And so what people have to do to make sure that their transaction gets through is they have to pay the miners who are running the Ethereum network a price to process that transaction. So everyone who's trying to process transactions right now on the Ethereum network, everyone who wants to complete a transaction is basically bidding against each other to get the network to process that transaction. So let's say there's 100 people who all want to get a transaction completed at the same time. The person who pays the most has their transaction completed first. And so when everyone is trying to do something on the Ethereum network at the same time, let's say a new NFT platform has got a lot of users doing something all at the same time, the cost for completing a transaction just skyrockets and goes to the moon. And so that figure there at the top is the current price. It's part of the current price for completing a transaction. It's one of the figures that is used in the computation of that. And 141 Gwei is sort of a pretty low transaction price right now. I would say that if you want to send Ethereum from one wallet to another, it would probably cost you somewhere in the order of like $10. But that price can fluctuate a lot. So the reason that we have that on our website is so that people can have a look at that and go, wow, that's a lot higher than it was a couple hours ago. Maybe I'll wait a little bit of time, or they'll look at it and go, that's a pretty good, congestion number right now. But you can just use that as a heuristic and just make sure you keep an eye on it. And it's a bit of an indication of how much a transaction might cost at that particular moment. But you'll see that if I go over to the Polygon network, that figure will change. And so that is the level of congestion 30 Gwei on the Polygon network. And because the Polygon network in general has a different protocol for processing transactions, it's already massively cheaper. And so sending a Polygon transaction right now would probably cost somewhere around like 1/10 of a cent rather than $10. So you can see that like on the Polygon network, it's a lot more effective, a lot more efficient with your funds.
Okay, so let's go back to, okay, I'm a newcomer, I want to do some stuff in DeFi. Obviously, there is a lot of risk. There is volatility already in the space with Bitcoin, Ethereum, which are the main cryptocurrency, but there are some other tokens that perhaps can have a higher upside, but people don't know. That's why they are always asking, oh, can you give me a tip? Which one is the best? Otherwise, they buy Shiba Inu, and then they may, maybe that's not the best decision. If we look at some of the assets that you added on the bridge, and that will be probably a strategic way, you wouldn't be adding any kind of like assets. Let's start, maybe you already talk about Polygon and why you think is very important for the DeFi space. Let's maybe, and then the stable coins as well. So let's maybe talk about Aavegotchi. Why Aavegotchi?
Well, actually, Bonnie, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So Aavegotchi is a really interesting platform. Basically, it is an NFT platform where you can own a little like Tamagotchi character, basically, and you can put money on, we can put USDC or Ethereum or whatever it might be into your little Aavegotchi, and then that asset is then used on the Aave platform to earn interest on that cryptocurrency. And so the Aavegotchi team have implemented some novel things, like they implemented a new type of ERC standard on the Ethereum network called the ERC 988 standard, which was a bit of an innovation in the NFT space. And they're doing a lot of really interesting things around the metaverse and around lending and NFTs. And so we've partnered up with them and decided to add that asset to our bridge, because we're getting quite a lot of users who need to move their assets for NFT platforms in particular from Ethereum to Polygon. And so Aavegotchi are one of the NFT platforms that really needed a bridging solution.
So do you think they could be the next Axie Infinity? I mean, do you have this kind of like long-term expectation for Aavegotchi?
I think they already are the next Axie Infinity. Aavegotchi are a huge platform. They have a lot of, they have a massive community. There's a lot of interest. They're doing some really exciting stuff. They just released kind of the next generation of their NFT platform, which is very interesting. And there's a lot of interest in the NFT space right now. I would say the NFT space is probably the hottest space right now, just because it's so easy to understand. You have a non-fungible asset like a piece of art that belongs to you. And I think that's a concept that resonates with a lot of people, even people who are new to the space. And so Aavegotchi are a very exciting platform because that's just massive, and they're doing a lot of cool stuff.
Okay. And the APY is also quite interesting. So people can just, they've got their Aavegotchi maybe to use for buy land or anything in the game. They can just park some there and then actually earn a good return.
Yeah, and Aavegotchi is actually an interesting one to add into the bridge, because you can look on the Aavegotchi website and see when they're going to release their next amount of land from their metaverse, or when they're going to release a new product from the system. And so you can just put your stake in there, a couple of days before, and then when there's a big amount of throughput, when people come to try to purchase stuff with their Ghost, you can earn really high APYs in those few days. And then if you like, you can keep your assets there, or you can just pull them out after that.
Okay, so which are the other assets that that you're considering to add to the Umbria pool? Because that will be a way for people to say, right, these are the assets that we actually think they are going to get more traction. They are valuable projects. Yeah,
so we're talking closely with our community to see what they want, because at the end of the day, our project is going to be successful when we become the most useful to our community. And so we focused on assets that have the most throughput on traditional bridges like the Polygon bridge. And so that has been very helpful to us. We found that Ethereum seems to be one of the main drivers, particularly for people purchasing NFTs. But in the future, we're thinking we would like to add DAI, which is a stable coin that a lot of people like. It's a particularly decentralized stablecoin, so our community are very interested in DAI. But beyond that, if anyone in our community wants us to add something and there's enough demand for it, then anything that the users of our system want will influence.
Yeah, exactly. You can see that just by some of the APYs on this page that I have up here, that some of the assets are really widely used, like Ethereum, and then some of them aren't really particularly used that much, like wrapped Bitcoin. But our feeling when we add an asset to our bridge is we say to ourselves, well, who needs to move this asset from one chain to another? And if we can point to a community or a group of people that are desperate to do that, then we're definitely going to add it. But if we think to ourselves, well, no one's really moving this asset between chains, there's not going to be much demand for this, then we probably won't add it. And so the reason that we've added a bunch of stable coins is because a lot of people are holding assets in stable coins and then waiting for maybe a trade that they want to do, doing that trade, and then jumping back into a stable coin again, just so they know that the value of their assets kind of remains pretty stable. So that's why we have the stable coins. And then, of course, Ethereum is incredibly widely used in the NFT space. A lot of people are buying their NFTs with Ethereum, and that's been our main point of adoption. But as far as that heavily yet, but we are talking to a few DeFi projects right now who are probably going to integrate our bridge as their sort of official bridging solution. And when that does happen over the next few weeks or few months, and we pull in more communities and more projects who are going to be using our bridge, we do expect the throughput and the volume of the stable coins to increase. At least I predict that that's going to happen. And so what we're really doing here was just trying to, as efficiently as possible, facilitate the cross-chain bridging of whatever assets are needed to be used by the wider community, rather than just adding arbitrary assets and hoping that people are going to use them. Because I think there are a distinct set of assets that people need to bridge, and that's the problem we're trying to solve here.
Yeah, and also it seems an easy way for people to just get into the space and get some coin, park them somewhere. In the meantime, they can do their research, because it's not that, you just say, right, I'm just going to buy that, I'm going to do that. When people are entering the space, they go very slowly as well.
Someone just asked a question. Does this platform allow users to trade assets at a fixed rate or in futures? And so the answer to that question is no. This is just a bridge. So it's just a way for people to move their assets from one blockchain to another. There's no swapping mechanisms or anything like that. You can't put in one asset and receive a different asset on the other side. This is purely for bridging different assets from one blockchain to another, and you receive the same asset on one side that you do on the other side.
Yeah, basically the problem that we've solved with this bridge is drastically lowering the cost of moving your assets between chains. Because before we came out with this bridge, basically all the bridges in the space were using the same model, which is called the validator-driven model. And all of the sort of computation that was required to bridge assets from one chain to another, all of that computation was done on chain, which made it really expensive and really slow. And so what we've done with this bridge is, with the underlying protocol, is we've extracted away from being on chain all of that validation and all of that complex computation. We've said, if you have to do that stuff on chain, it becomes expensive and slow. So let's move all of that stuff away off chain onto our own application and just do the bare minimum that's required on chain to facilitate the bridging. And by doing so, we've drastically reduce the price of bridging your assets, and we've sped it up by a factor of 10 or 20.
Okay, another question here. It says, how do you mitigate against market forces?
Well, the bridge doesn't really care about market forces because you're only ever going to be moving one asset across the bridge. So if you have 10 Ethereum somewhere and you want your 10 Ethereum to be somewhere else, you come to the bridge, you put your 10 Ethereum in, and it pops out on the other side basically instantly within about 4 minutes on average. And so this isn't an exchange that really cares about whether the price of something's going to go up or down. It's just a way for you to move your assets around and have the freedom to migrate your assets between different chains. And well, there might be one market force that we care about, which is people actually using the bridge and people actually trading. But as far as the day-to-day price of things is concerned, the bridge doesn't really care about that. It's still able to facilitate cross-chain transactions regardless of what the price of something is.
Exactly. And the amount of money that the liquidity providers earn is done in percentages. And so if Ethereum was worth $10,000 a coin and you bridge an Ethereum, our LP providers collectively get 0.5% of that one Ethereum, no matter what price that Ethereum is. And so the US dollar price of these tokens, it's not really a factor that we need to consider when calculating APYs or calculating how much of an asset that our liquidity providers earn.
Okay, if we are talking about the APY and there is, for example, a crash in the crypto market, how the APY are going to suffer or are going to change the APY that we see now on the screen?
Well, when there's a crash in the market, that's when everyone starts trading. That's when everyone starts panicking and making moves. And
so it might be beneficial, actually.
I think it definitely would, yeah. Whenever the market is doing something interesting or exciting, that's when people are going to be using our bridge. So, if everything cools down and we have a crypto winter, no one cares about crypto anymore, then the bridge is probably not going to be as widely used, just like any other cryptocurrency application. But we're in a really exciting time right now where a lot of people care about crypto. A lot of people are speculating and buying things and experimenting with things. And so I think, as far as I can tell, there's going to be a nice future for the bridge, and people are going to keep adopting it over time. We've seen really nice adoption over the past 3 or 4 months that the bridge has been active. It's a nice looking curve as DeFi applications and NFT applications are adopting us. And so as far as I can tell, as we keep adding chains and as we keep adding assets, the amount of volume that the bridge is handling will increase, and then the amount of APY should increase with that as well.
Okay, we saw before when you are selecting the network that soon we are going to have a Binance Smart Chain, and I just wanted to ask why now? Why Binance Smart Chain? How we are going to be able to use Binance Smart Chain with the bridge, and do you see? The Binance Smart Chain has got lots of projects. Obviously, they are there. Lots of NFTs project. Is like a separate environment in the crypto space. And why have you decided to actually tap into that market, into that kind of network? Really,
there's a couple. Do you want to do this one?
Oh, thank you. So I would say that Binance Smart Chain is the place right now for NFTs. And so the throughput we've been having between Ethereum and Polygon has been very exciting. But we think that the throughput between Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain is going to be orders of magnitude potentially higher. And so there's just a lot of room for the Umbria project to grow by implementing Binance Smart Chain. And we think it's going to be incredibly useful for our community members, particularly those that are interested in trading NFTs and getting in on new NFT platforms, but also with DeFi, at lending and all that kind of thing. All that stuff is available on Binance Smart Chain. And so we think that as we add new blockchains, we are going to see big growth in volume on our system. But in particular, Binance Smart Chain, we think is going to be a really big mover in the right direction for our project.
Okay, so if let's go back. I'm new to crypto. I've got some money. I wanna maybe get some exposure to DeFi, or maybe I can do something in the NFT space. So how we can say how can somebody decide? Right, I'm going to do stuff in the NFT space, or I'm just going to look at DeFi. Which is going to be better for something, and the other one, why the other one is better maybe for a different kind of investors?
They're definitely two, completely separate and different spaces. But I would definitely encourage a new person who's just entering the space to check out the NFT space, because I would say that NFTs are a lot more simple of a concept and a lot friendlier of an introduction to cryptocurrency and the power of crypto technology. Because what NFTs basically have done, or at least most of the NFT projects that you've seen out there, is taken something that we're all very familiar with, which is art, collectible art, and then put a layer of crypto technology on top of it and given it kind of a novel use case. And it's kind of a very good way to educate yourself about crypto and what crypto can do and what the underlying crypto technology has done for art and collectibles within the NFT space. So I would definitely encourage people to check out the NFT space as one of the first places they go if they're new to crypto. And also the community in the NFT spaces, people who are hosting the Twitter spaces and all those discussions and things like that, they can be very informative. And there are a lot of people out there who can answer your questions and who are eager to build communities around this technology. So that's definitely the best first place to start, I would say.
Can you maybe tell Oscar and then Bonnie as well, tell us which are your favorite NFT space and why?
I've just gotten into an NFT project called Funko Bits, which are some cute little 8-bit characters. And the reason I like Funko Bits is because it's launched on the Polygon network, which means it's sort of it's a good technological platform for gamifying the NFTs in the future and continue building on the base level NFT technology that's there. Because what a lot of the NFT projects are doing right now is they're releasing a set of collectible NFTs, and that's really cool. But what they're doing on top of that is building more technologies, things like games, things like interesting governance ideas that are really going to explore the full extent of blockchain technology and what we can do on these new, more efficient chains like Polygon. So any NFT project that's using Polygon or any of these interesting new blockchains like Solana or anything like that, I'm very interested in, because I don't think we've fully explored the true power of these more efficient, cheaper and faster blockchains.
Yeah, I agree. I really like Aave personally, because I think they're doing a lot of interesting and innovative things, like implementing that new ERC standard, which brings about a whole bunch of opportunities for other developers to then implement their own systems on top. And it's really a proof of technological experience to implement something so impressive. And so I would say that any NFT platform that's doing something new and exciting, particularly on a second level blockchain like Polygon, Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain, they're the places I would go for to look for cool and interesting new things in the space.
Okay, so yeah, we have got, I have one that I really like, but it's not on Ethereum, and it's on Kusama actually, and is Canaria, which I think is quite interesting, because they are creating these evolving NFTs. They are actually reacting to emotion or to maybe some kind of input that somebody gave to the NFT. So let's say they actually release these eggs that you buy, and then based on the interaction that the eggs have from other people, maybe people send you love or kisses or maybe something bad. Anyway, that influence the NFT, and the NFT will have the bird that is going to come out from the egg will basically take this kind of interaction. And I think this is a great concept, because if we think about with the avatar, so at some point we are going to have a digitalized version of ourselves, and we are actually a product of society, right? So we are a result of those kind of interaction. That's what our personality, we are not just built on silos. And I think in the future, if we are going to be able to create avatar, they actually, they are going to be influenced by the society and the interaction that can happen in the metaverse. It will be very interesting. So that's a project just a bit different that I'm quite excited about. But obviously we will see what they do.
Yeah, that seems really interesting, and it just goes to show what's possible with blockchain technology in the NFT space. Doesn't just extend to a 10,000 collectible picture sort of situation. Exactly. You can add more features and more technology and more interesting concepts on top of that.
So coming back to let's just connect Polkadot here before we answer the next question about energy. So Polkadot is known to be the hub for interoperability, so where different chain can actually interoperate without the need of a bridge. Sometimes you do need a bridge. So can you maybe explain on how, if you are considering to add the Polkadot to the bridge, and if you will do that and why, and how that will work, this compatibility between, EVM chain, compatible chain and Polkadot. Is that like possible? Would that require lots of work? I just don't have clear how you can do it.
Yeah, well, Polkadot haven't released their virtual machine yet on the mainnet, and so it's a bit difficult to speculate exactly how that's all going to work. But I'm definitely interested to see how that goes when it does eventually get released. It's been 9 months now that people have been waiting for it, so hopefully it'll be released soon. But we're still all kind of patiently waiting for Polkadot to finish their first version of their virtual machine for the mainnet, and then we'll be able to go from there to see what happens.
Yeah, with all these different blockchains, some of them are what I would call strongly EVM compatible, like Binance Smart Chain, which is basically just a clone of Ethereum with some minor tweaks. And so that is almost a carbon copy of Ethereum, which makes it very easy to just, once you have a system like the Umbria bridge, apply the bridge to that technology, because it's basically the same thing. And then you have a chain like Solana, which they say they're EVM compatible, Ethereum compatible, and they are in a lot of ways, but they're not as strongly tied to the Ethereum style of blockchain, you might say. And so that's the sort of the next level. And then you have other weird and wonderful blockchains like IOTA, things like that, things that are way out there in the deep end, in the weird zone, that are not compatible at all. And they're going to be more difficult to implement because they're going to require more bespoke solutions to fully integrate every feature, because the two things are not the same. And so with the Umbria bridge, I think what we're going to do is, as much as possible, concentrate in the early days on integrating blockchains that are as close to Ethereum as possible, just because that's going to be a more secure way to move forward, because there won't be any hidden surprises, but also the development time and the development cost is going to be a lot lower because we're used to the underlying technology.
Okay, one question, let's start maybe with this one. Have you worked with other sectors such as ticketing, music, or films? Because we are working with Zedran, we are working with Avigocci, but what about these other areas which actually are quite interesting, particularly music with ticketing as well, but with NFTs and intellectual property right and royalties, it seems to be really a very exciting space. Maybe that is somewhere where the bridge could add more value.
Yeah, well, we could partner with anybody whose community needs to bridge assets from one place to another. And so as far as what goes on the application layer, further than that, it doesn't really matter to us, as long as it's not an evil project doing something bad. We can integrate with any project that needs to move assets from one chain to another. Okay,
fine. So, let's go on. Barney, you want to add something?
I was just going to answer the question of NFT drawn criticism with respect to the energy cost and carbon footprint associated with validating blockchain transactions, and how does our platform address this issue? Well, I would say that supposed problem is a protocol level issue, and something that the blockchain itself and the developers of the blockchain have to fix, because the proof of work mechanism that Ethereum uses is not something that as an application developer on the blockchain I can make any difference to, or anyone such as Uni Swap or Sushi Swap or any of us guys can do. That's something at a protocol level. That being said, Ethereum is changing over to proof of stake at some point with their Ethereum 2.0 release that they forecast should be around within kind of 6 to 12 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. But further than that, I would say that the carbon footprint that proof of work blockchains do exude into the system, I would say it's really not that big of a cost when you think about that cryptocurrency is creating a global financial platform that removes any of the corruption and problems that you would see in a centralized system. And so we're really not paying much of a price for something that is just so amazing and so helpful to people in developing countries and things like that. But beyond that, I would say that if you're concerned about things like your carbon footprint, there are about 80% of all plastic in the ocean comes from 4 rivers in India. And so that's somewhere to look if you're worried about carbon footprints and that kind of thing. But when it comes to blockchain technology, the actual amount of carbon that mining on Ethereum and mining on Bitcoin actually produces is totally negligible compared to some of the other climate catastrophes, I guess you could say, are happening around the world.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would just say, look to the inefficiencies of the current banking system. Just walk down the main street of your city and look into the banks that you use and see that all the lights are still switched on at 4 o'clock in the morning, and extrapolate that information further out into just how inefficient these banking systems are. We have global banking infrastructure that is absolutely massive and wildly inefficient. And so the trade-off between the traditional banking and insurance and all the different centralized financial tools that we use, the amount of encumbrance and inefficiency of those systems is unimaginable. And so if you compare that to something like Bitcoin or even the entire cryptocurrency space, yes, it's not a perfect system, but it's you can't compare the two as far as their global impact on our ecosystem.
Okay, shall we maybe answer the next question about fraud slip minting?
Sure. So our system works by looking at the blockchain for transactions that have already been confirmed before bridging takes place. And so we have an oracle, which essentially is looking at all the different blockchains that we support at any given moment. And when it notices that a transaction is sent to the bridge oracle and has been confirmed on the blockchain, only then does it then send the appropriate transaction on the other blockchain to the user that did the bridge. And so we don't have to really worry about fraud at all, because that system isn't actually connected to our user base directly. That oracle only actually looks at the blockchain. So this system inherits all of the security that you would come to expect from the fantastic proof of work difficulty that Ethereum has, and then all of the validated proof of stake on the Polygon chain.
Yeah, one of the major security concerns with any centralized application like an exchange is that there's a direct interface between the exchange and the end user. So when the end user says, and they're acting maliciously, I want to send -1 Ethereum, or I want to send ABC Ethereum, they might trick the system into making a mistake. But our system doesn't speak to a user that can attempt to trick it into doing something it's not supposed to do. All it does is look at the blockchain. And so whenever a user is interacting with our system, they're only indirectly accessing our system. They're not talking directly to the system. So the system doesn't talk to anyone. It just looks at the blockchain and acts accordingly.
Okay, well, I think we just reached the end of today's webinar. I think it was great. There will be many more questions that we can answer to the next one, but unless we have got any other question. Okay, here it is. Let's finish with this. What is your opinion position on Tezos? Which is a very interesting question. I want to hear as well. Go on. Who is going to take this?
Honestly, I'm not too familiar with what they're doing, to be totally honest. So I couldn't give a good answer to that one. Maybe Oscar, you can give a better answer.
This might be a bit of a cynical answer. I'm not amazingly familiar with Tezos, but I would just say there's a lot of vaporware out there. There's a lot of projects making really big promises. And unless you've seen some real adoption and some real popularity within a project, I wouldn't trust a lot of what these projects are saying. If they've come out with something that you can use, you can hold it in your hand and say, this is something I can use, that's a really good sign. But as far as all of the promises and things like that, and I'm not speaking just to Tezos as an example of this, I'm just saying more generally, don't trust the promises, only trust the results.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say that if you want to know how good, well, in my opinion, how good a blockchain is, look at its throughput. Look at how many people are using it, how many addresses there are on there, how much volume is moving through it. Because at the end of the day, all of these blockchains really are just tools. And if people aren't able to use the tool, then there's really not much value there, at least at that given moment. And so all of these applications that have big promises, maybe they will be amazing technology in the future. But for now, the way I see it is, if a blockchain isn't being used right now, it doesn't have a lot of people, taking advantage of it and building, positive things, then it doesn't really have much value in my eyes.
Okay, so maybe next time we can elaborate a bit more on Tezos, and also we can comment on Cosmos as well, which is another one that is getting some traction as well. And we can just share what we think about them. Even though I do agree with you, Bunny and Oscar, that Ethereum is the main one now, has got the most more users, has got more projects there, and some great stuff are happening on Polkadot, some great stuff are going to happen or are happening on Cardano. But, at the end of the day, because we are building product and solution for DeFi, you want to be on the network that is actually has the big attraction and build from that.
Yeah,
so,
from what people are actually using and from what people have asked us to implement, it seems like the most exciting projects to us are obviously Ethereum, Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, Solana, Phantom, Avalanche, and maybe Wax as well for NFTs. So those are the projects that I'm looking at and going, okay, here are some communities that are doing something really exciting.
Okay, so maybe that's a good place for next episode to start to talk about those and what they are doing, and perhaps how Umbria is planning to work with them. Okay, listen, thank you very much for today, and let's do that next time. So we are going to be here every couple of weeks, and anybody that has a question, please just don't be afraid, come on the show, ask a question, because that's your opportunity to level up your skills. And also don't be afraid to ask questions that maybe you think, oh, that's such a simple question, but it is not. We are still early in the crypto space, and definitely in DeFi and NFTs and all these applications. So I will see you next time.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks.